Hi, everyone, and welcome to SUPERHOG's Titans podcast series. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Antonio Bortolotti, the founder of the utterly fantastic VRWS conference. Antonio, how are you?
Very good. Thank you, Leo. I'm honored and flattered to be introduced this way.
Well, look, I mean it sincerely. We've had a great couple of years where we first met at your Como conference, which was obviously before the world shut down and, in the days of, in the heady days before we'd ever uttered the words COVID. And then you and I stayed in really close contact during and kept chatting. And I was so delighted to come back when you relaunched the conference last year. So, yeah. You must be absolutely thrilled to be organizing a conference where you don't have to too much or make too many considerations right now for COVID. So how is that treating you?
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, even though there's still COVID, but there are no restrictions or the feeling of restrictions like last year. So it's a relief in a way. You were there last year, so you remember we had a cap at 50%, meaning that before COVID, we were expecting up to 600 attendees, but then we were organizing that in France and we had a limitation at 300. And indeed, we sold out like every year. But if you remember, like a couple of weeks before, there was a new wave of COVID. So we got like 50 cancellations. And in the end, we did like 250 people. You remember we were wearing the masks. Yeah. So, with all the round tables and networking was kind of, weird. But on the other hand, there was this really, you could feel it in the air, the desire for everyone to get together again in person after 2 years of confinement. So all good. I mean,
absolutely. And there's so many reasons why you do the conference. The education is always fantastic. The vibe is always excellent. And also I can say that we made some, as a business, we met some people there that have gone on to become customers, which is absolutely fantastic. And when I think back to last year, which I must say for anyone who wasn't aware, it was in Annecy, in southwest France, southeast France, lovely lake for swimming. We'll get onto that, won't we? I don't think back and remember wearing a mask. I really don't think about that because actually, you're right. Everyone was such energy for people to get back together that I wasn't thinking, oh, this was a pain, that was a pain, restrictions. Quite the opposite. We knew there was going to be restrictions and we all fought through that because we wanted to be at the conference. And it was utterly brilliant.
Yeah, correct. I agree with it was really the feeling that everyone had. And it's because it's basically what it's been in this industry. Whoever is in this industry seriously realizes that there's something different than in other industries. It's a people industry, and we should be naturally inclined to be hospitable. And so when we meet at events, that's what I expect. I expect to meet up with people who have a grin on their faces, who are happy to see me, and I'm happy to see them. So that's what it is. That's what it's been, at least for the event, for 9 years now. So one of the recipes for success is definitely the people there and the atmosphere.
I completely agree. Well, look, tell us in your own words, sort of how you started, why you started VRWS, and a little bit about how it sort of forms and is today.
Everything starts from a lack of something. So, even like your business, every business starts because you realize there is something missing. You can't find the solution. And then sooner or later, you go do it yourself. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you don't. So basically, I was born as a host, as a property owner myself. I still am. I own multiple properties in Sardinia and on Lake Maggiore. And over the years, I remember I went to the first HomeAway summit back then in 2007 or 8, when it wasn't even HomeAway yet, but and in Europe, in London, actually. Mm-hmm. And I was expecting there to learn so much and meet so many fantastic people, which in a way happened, but not really as I expected. Then I was on their stage for like 3-4 years, every year, sharing some of my secrets, so to speak, of how I was performing with my properties, up until the moment when the time was mature to get a summit of our own, because demand was super big, like lots of property managers and hosts were saying, how do you do this? How do you do that? Operations and other things. There was really nothing that was delivering on this need. So at the time, I knew a few people in the industry who I've met over time during the years. I had this crazy vision, an idea. So I reached out to all of them and said, look, would you like to jump on board with me to this crazy journey and start this thing called the Summit? And yeah, the people jumped in quite happily. We did the first edition online, and you know, in a way, it was sort of like, if it fails, no one's gonna realize because it's online. But if it goes well, it goes well. So in the first edition, we had 15,000 attendees from 50 countries for 3 days.
Wow! Sorry, say that again. How many?
Yeah. 15,000 people for 3 days, 9 hours, 8 hours a day, you know, 9 to 5 from 50 different countries. So clearly there was demand for it. So I said, okay, it goes well. So we repeated 2 years, and then on year 3 we landed on physical grounds with a physical event in Barcelona, Spain. Then Florence the year after, then Lake Como for 2 years, then last year Annecy, this year Portugal, all the way up to the 9th edition. So
amazing. I had no idea that it started as an online event, and you know, clearly it's changed over the years as an event, as the industry has changed. What would you say is different from the conversations and the education that was happening back when you started to where it is today?
Well, I would say that today it's a more mature industry. We're all more mature and grown. So sometimes it was easier to share education in the past because people were less mature, less expert, less professional. So it was easier to share topics that were valuable for all the attendees. Now I see, as we're growing, sometimes the conversations become more detailed, more specific. The topics are higher in level because, as I said, the people attending are a lot more pros than they used to be years ago. Yeah. So that's the way I've seen it changed from an education standpoint.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then the sort of the things that people might want to learn about are much more varied as well, right? So it's really important to know your audience and know exactly what your particular audience wants to hear about, generally speaking. And you have a very loyal follower base for your conference. Is that what you think the secret is making sure that the education is targeted to them as much as it can be?
I think it's a matter of the atmosphere that's created there, because for those who've been to the summit, and you are one of them, so you know, you relate to that as family. Mm-hmm. So you feel like, okay, I'm going back there year after year because I'm going to meet my peers. I'm going to meet my friends. I'm going to meet people who I haven't seen in a year. So I'm just going to exchange tips and tricks and share how I'm doing things, and they're going to do the same with me. There's an exchange that is fabulous. So the atmosphere that's created there is what I think it makes the difference. But to say something different, this year we have a lot of new people attending the event. So it's going to be quite interesting to see, and especially for you guys and all the companies being there as well. It's going to be interesting as well because there's you guys are all going to have a lot of new people to talk to.
I really look forward to that. One of the things I think is your secret is the locations that you choose, because as you know, I'm involved in the Short-Term Accommodation Association in the UK. So everything we do is generally in London, not renowned for its weather until very recently, certainly not as glamorous as the locations that you tend to pick. What can you tell us about this upcoming year? Because I mean, I have such fond memories of drinking in a square in Como and getting to know some wonderful people, some friendships that have lasted a long time. people like Michael Golding at Noise Aware, Shannon, who was guest ready at the time, and Simon Lehman, of course. We had a lovely evening, and a few others who I could name, and you, of course. And then last year we had all that lovely swimming in Lake Annecy and all that lovely networking at sort of 1 o'clock in the morning. That is now vacation rental legend, I think. What's in the tank for everybody this year?
Well, this year, actually, we are rolling out the event app, I think today, to the attendees. And in there, we basically put lots of things to do while in there. And we're going to have some fringe events as well, before, during, and after the summit. So there is lots of things to do: party time, bars, dinners. Some companies are organizing something on the side of the event. So I think it's going to be like every year, once again, a reunion of friends and peers and partners from the industry. Brilliant. So this year, you can expect, I believe, lots of them. I mean, Porto, I don't know, have you ever been to Porto before?
This will be my first time.
Okay, so it's the second. It's a UNESCO heritage town. Very nice, and it's got like a city center that is very charming, and it's full of life. So that's where the action will take place, and the venue is not far from there. It's right on the river. So I can envision, all of us going to have some fun after the event as well.
It sounds utterly brilliant. You mentioned earlier in the interview the fact that there's lots of new people attending this year. This I'm not surprised about, because obviously last year was about everyone getting back after COVID, right? So it was about rebirth, the phoenix. Given that we're full 12 months on from that, and things have definitely come back stronger, I think, for lots of people. We're seeing this revenge travel taking place, even in amongst the cost of living crisis. We're seeing people prioritizing wanting to go on holiday and wanting to go away and experience things. What sort of themes are you going to be pulling in this year to do with that?
Well, we always start every year with industry data and trends. Normally, there's either AirDNA or Transparent that gives an overview on the industry. So we think it's a good start to give everyone an overview on a macro level, on a global level, and then going more granular into like European and North American level to get the feel for attendees to understand what's going on and what's expected to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. We have, I just like, I put it here, a few notes, because otherwise, there's the list of, we actually released the agenda 2 or 3 days ago. And indeed, if you go to the vacationrentalworldsummit.com website, you'll see there's a link on the top menu called agenda that lists the topics there. So I'm just going, by heart. Yeah. And we're going to have Simon Lehman, as always, with his nice talk. And his talk this year will be for preparing for the unexpected. So it will be a talk about changing travel behavior and length of stay, optimizing revenue management, distribution, direct bookings, and more. Then Alexander Limper will talk about how to scale. He's basically going to talk about how to scale from 0 to 3,000 properties. So for whoever is there that is looking at growing, that could be an interesting example to see. We're going to have Verbo, Lara Kwak from Verbo, who is going to give I think a pretty interesting session, a panel on sustainability with like 3 or 4 champions of sustainability in our industry. So we're going to talk about how to make sure that you are also meeting what the requirements are for a better world for all of us, while attracting a new audience that is becoming more and more sensitive, or to the matter, to the topic of sustainability. And then reporting with Pierre Besseril from Transparent, that is going to lead a session on how reporting can revolutionize your operations. A fire chat with Eric Bergaglia from Booking.com that was going to be moderated, interviewed by Vanessa de Souza Lage. So she'll be back on stage on a different you know, with a different, you know, we say it in Italian, clothes on.
Right. Yeah.
And then we'll have Matt Landau that's going to lead a secret new. He hasn't even told me about the session yet, because you know, he's done lots of research and then he comes out with new things. I think he's going to do something pretty spectacular this year as well. So
You've got an amazing lineup. I mean, you've just named such A-listers there, such big hitters, and I love the themes that you're exploring. They're definitely more frequent conversations for sure around sustainability. Scaling, very important, I think, at the moment. I think goes back to what you were saying earlier about the conference being a few years old now, and the industry in general maturing. Right, you've got big property managers looking at how they get further scale based on what they've been able to do. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, also because when I was saying earlier that we have lots of new people coming into the industry and coming to the summit, I was just thinking, and I think you agree, and that the pandemic has been sort of like a turning point in our industry. So there's lots of people who are exiting the industry, and they say for one reason or the other, either they couldn't make it through the pandemic, or they decided it was time to sell and do something else in life. And new people that are approaching the industry because of the pandemic, that they found out that this is a great industry to be in. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, there's also people who are looking at an exit. So, you know, coming to the summit is also a way of finding someone that might be interested in acquiring your assets.
I think that's very interesting. I do agree, and I hadn't quite thought about it in those terms, but it makes perfect sense. That's also a key element of networking, isn't it? It's to find out who's around, who's growing, who's looking for an exit. Quite right. And I love the forums that you put together that really allow people to do that with the small groups and the small table format. Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Because I think if you haven't been to your summit, you wouldn't know about that.
Yeah, true. It's something that we introduced last year because of the pandemic, because of a number of reasoning that we did. As you said earlier at the beginning of our talk, we've been evolving over the years, and we've been following also the flow and following what was needed and how could we get better and better every day. So last year we introduced the roundtables. Prior to that, as you remember in Como, the spectacular theaters, spectacular venues, but you had a theater style seating where you are more passive in a way, like you sit like in a cinema and watch who's on stage delivering sessions. Last year, we decided to introduce a more active and more engaging way of being at the summit. And so we introduced these roundtables. Group of 10 people seated at the round table. There's an intersection of sessions on stage and then workshops at the round table with your peers. And we pair people at the tables as in weddings. So it's sort of like a wedding planning. So it's not seated by chance. It's not random seating. We've done some study, some investigation, and we know that property managers a certain size have similar issues, and a certain geographical area like Europe, as opposed to the US, face different situations. So they speak the same language. And if they had to share their struggles and try to help each other, then it's how we put them together at the right table. So you've got like hosts at the same table, property managers at other tables of different size and different, geographical area. And that's it. I mean, this proved to be. I mean, you were there, so how was it for you?
Well, we signed up for this year quite quickly, didn't we? So I think that says it.
You were the first one actually in January.
Yeah. I think that says it all. What I like about the small groups format, and there's lots of, there's obviously lots of moments in the day where it's big talks, and or you're mixing with lots of different people over a coffee or over a beer. You allow for lots of that networking time to just happen. That's what I like about your style. It's very much like when we went to Como, it's look, we're going to be in this square. This is where we're going to be, and now you can mingle and meet people. But also, what I liked about the small group sessions was it allowed you to go into detail and have a more detailed conversation with a smaller group and actually learn. So, you reflect upon a bigger talk, but then learn from someone else's pain point, and that might help you come away as a vendor or a property manager with new ideas on how to tackle a certain problem. And that's the key thing for me is always the education is so tight. What do you love most about the actual show itself? So when it's happening, when it's going on, what do you enjoy about the few days?
The people, the atmosphere, for sure, the friendliness of everyone there, the convergence of interests right there, the networking that is done, the relationship that are sealed. I mean, I can feel there is an impact done there. So I love the generally speaking, I love the energy, the community feeling, the people, the networking. And I see that afterwards, because I see that in the words of appreciation or gratitude that I receive via email from so many attendees, that weeks or months after, they reach out spontaneously to me saying, thank you, because thanks to attending the event, I was able to, and they list what they did. So it's very rewarding for me.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. And that's another thing that's so great about you, is that you really care about that experience, right? And that you're really, the feedback that you get is what drives you next year, right? It's always to drive it on to continue to evolve the show, isn't it?
Exactly.
Now, you work very hard at the show. So I'm sure there's a slight bit of sadness when each year comes to an end, because your work for that year is over. But how do you celebrate the end of a VRWS?
It depends. Sometimes, as you said, it's work hard, so you get quite stressed out after that. So a few years ago, I used to say, never again. Every edition was, okay, this is the last one. I'm not going to do it again because this is too much. And then like a few days later, you go like, okay, let's do another one. So how I celebrate, I just try to relax and chill out. I normally unplug for like a couple of weeks or a few weeks, and then I start working on the next one shortly after. So I just unplug. I think I'll do the same this year. We have some relocation plans that you know of, that we talked about. Challenging year, lots of things going on this year. So I think it's going to be a deserved time for a break after the summit. Yeah.
Well, I totally agree. And you do work so hard and you achieve so much with it. So thank you, Antonio, for coming and talking to us about it today. Anybody that hasn't been to VRWS, you have my personal endorsement. You should definitely come. It's one of my favorite events of the year. Antonio, can you just give the people just listening just a little bit of detail about where it is, exactly what the dates are, and where to book?
Yeah, super easy. It's September 15 and 16 in Porto, Portugal. And I'll give you like a preview here. We're going to have the day before, on September 14, there's like an pre-summit one-day event for those that are tech geek or blockchain. It's going to be called Web3 in Travel. We're going to announce this week. And so it's a side event organized by Luca De Giglio.
Brilliant.
I mean, if you join the summit, you can also add a little extra, come an extra day before, and there's a mini summit for 50 people on Web3 in travel. So technology, AI, and the future that's going to be here tomorrow. And so Porto, Portugal, these dates, vacationrentalworldsummit.com is the website to go to. You can find all the information there. And over the next few days, we'll also release more information about this event. And for Portuguese, if there's any Portuguese host or property manager listening, there's also going to be another side event on the 14th. So that's still September 14, organized by the Association of Property Managers of Portuguese Property Managers. This is more going to be geared towards Portuguese property managers. I think it's going to be in Portuguese, but for the Portuguese listening, if they want, there's going to be this one too.
Amazing. Lots going on, and I really can't wait. So, Antonio, thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about it. And I'll see you in Porto, my friend.
Yep, you bet. See you there.
Thanks, Antonio.